Welcome back. Here's part two. Now, the next step after creating the cluster, which we created in the previous video, we're going to configure the host environment to support the VMware high availability. So even though there's a cluster, we don't have any hosts in it, nor have we configured the hosts appropriately for this. Let's have a quick look at the current configuration. Okay, so you can see here that we have the two ESXi hosts, both of which are objects in our vCenter inventory, but they currently haven't been added to the cluster yet. We also have a couple different networks on here, and we have a data store. One of the things we need to ensure is that both hosts have access to the same data stores, the same virtual machine networks, and we also have to have at least one management network in common. So that's what we're going to be configuring next. ESXi1 currently is configured for some of that. We're going to need to configure ESXi2 for that as well and make those match up. So to that end, we're going to need to enable an iSCSI software initiator on ESXi2. And once we do that, we're going to ensure that we can access a common data store, one that is currently being accessed by ESXi1. We'll see that in the lab. And then we're also going to create a VM kernel port and use it for our vMotion traffic, which is part of the high availability, is the ability to move workloads around. So let's say one of our hosts goes down. Let's say the workload's on host 1 and host 1 goes down. We need to move that workload over to host 2. So we'll be configuring that as well. So let's get started. So you can see that here's the data store that we will be using or configuring for both of our hosts, and you can see that ESXi1 is currently configured to access that, but ESXi2 is not. So we're going to need to set that up. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and select the ESXi1 from our hosts and clusters. And then from there, we want to select the Manage tab and then select Storage. Our next step is to, under Storage Adapters, is we're going to need to add a storage adapter. And you'll notice that we're not able to select that because I inadvertently selected the wrong host. If you recall, I said that we need to add a storage adapter to ESXi2 because this is the one that needs to connect to that storage space that's going to be common, that data store. So now I've got ESXi2 selected. You can see that the add new storage adapter button is now available. So go ahead and click that one there. And I want the software iSCSI adapter. And it gives us a little warning message about the it's going to be added to the list, and after it's been added, we'll have to select it and use the details to complete the configuration. So we'll go ahead and press the OK. And you can see it just added the adapter, including opening some firewall ports. Okay. If we scroll down in the adapters list, we will see the iSCSI software adapter called VMHBA33. That's the one we're looking for. If you need to, if it doesn't show up, we can do a manual refresh right over here. Click that, and it should then pop up. All right. Let's go ahead and select that. And you can take a look at the adapter details window down below. Let me drag this up a little bit to expose a little bit more of that. Yeah, a little bit more, just to make it a little easier for you to see. Okay, so we look at in the adapter details down here. We're going to go ahead, verify that the status is currently enabled, and you can see that right here. So we can see that that's enabled. And then we're going to click on our Targets tab and make sure that Dynamic Discovery is available because we're going to look for iSCSI targets. And now that we have an iSCSI adapter, we're going to look for targets that that adapter can connect to. So we'll hit the Add button to access dynamic discovery. And then within this, we're going to give it the address, the IP address of that. And the address is 172.16.1.99. That is our target. And you'll notice the port is the common port of 3260 for this. And press the OK. We get a warning. Okay, it says due to recent configuration changes, a rescan of the storage adapter is recommended. So we'll go ahead and close that so we can expose this. And then what we're going to do is click on the rescan adapters icon at the top here. Make sure we rescan that. You can see a rescan is in progress. Happened pretty darn quick. Let's bring this down a little bit. This makes it a little hard to see. And there's our adapter. And you can see the type is iSCSI. And there you can see its identifier. Let's go ahead and click on the Paths tab. Okay, we can see that 2 paths are available. So we can actually see that we have paths to 2 different LUNs. All right. Now we're going to need to create a VM kernel port for vMotion traffic. Okay. So at this point, sorry about the delay here. Just get into the correct step on here. We're going to switch over to our first host, ESXi1. And create a VM kernel port on that for our vMotion traffic. So this is a port specifically for management of virtual machines, something that they can travel across. So let's go ahead and click on, we click there. Let's go up under Manage, go to Settings. Under Settings, actually, excuse me, Network. Pardon me, that was Manage Networking. We should be able to add or click on the Add Host Networking icon. In the Add Host Networking icon, on our Select Connection Type, we select the VM kernel network adapter. It's already selected for us. Just a little reading here. The VM kernel TCP/IP stack handles traffic for ESXi services, so we're going to be able to do our vMotion across this. Also handles iSCSI, NFS, fiber channel over Ethernet, fault tolerance, virtual SAN, and host management. So this is a VM kernel network adapter that allows the VM kernel to communicate across the network. Let's click Next. And on the Select Target Device page, select New Standard Switch, and then click Next. This brings up the Create a Standard Switch page, and what we want to do is click the Add icon. We're going to select VMNIC2, and then click OK. And then click Next. Now we're on the Port Properties page. On this page, we're going to change the network label because we're going to use this specifically for vMotion. We'll leave the VLAN ID at 0, leave it at default for our TCP/IP stack, and then ensure that we check vMotion traffic and management traffic. Go ahead and click the Next. From here, we need to select Use Static IPv4 Settings. We won't need to set the gateway, that's already set, but what we do need to do is set the IP address on here. So we're going to use a 172.16.20.51. And the subnet mask, we're going to set it for 255, 255, 255, and 0. Hit the next. Take a quick look at it, make sure that we have the correct address. 172, 16, 20, 51, and 255, 255, 255, 0. And then click Finish. And then we're going to need to repeat these steps for the ESXi2 network adapter, or excuse me, for the ESXi2 host. And when we do that, we're going to need to use a different IP address. So instead of using the .51 address, we'll need to give it a .52. Here you can see that we have that management network adapter right here, set to 172.16.151. And that's currently connecting to VMNIC 0. Again, you can see that right over here. Here's some properties on that, and there's its IP settings. All right, let's go ahead and close that up. All right, so let's take a look at that one really quick. So I'll select ESXi2, and starting over again, I need to make sure that I select that I want a new virtual switch. And we want a VM kernel network adapter. This will be a new standard switch. And then I need to assign an adapter to that. And again, we're going to select VMNIC2 and click the OK. And then we'll click Next. Once again, we want to change the name here, and we'll set this to vMotion. Keep them the same so it makes sense. vMotion traffic and our management traffic. Hitting Next. We're going to need to set a static address, but this time we need a slightly different address. We've already used the 172.16, 20, and 51. That was used previously, so we need to use 52. Otherwise, we will have a networking conflict. And then this is set to 255, 255, 255 as our subnet mask, and 0. Hit the Next, and hit the Finish. And you can see it's creating that switch. And we should have our new switch here. And we'll just do a quick refresh to make sure everything's showing up. And this is our switch for our management traffic. It's got a VM kernel port at 172.16.1.52, and it is connecting through to VMNIC 0 as we established previously. Okay. At this point, we've configured a vMotion network that we can move virtual machines across for a high availability, and that management network is established. Plus, we also have the common data store on both of our hosts. So that ends this part of the lab. In the next lab, we're going to add host to our lab cluster. So see you in the next video. One other thing, I went to the iSCSI LUN. I wanted to ensure that we were in fact showing that 2 hosts are now connected. We looked at this briefly earlier, but we can see that ESXi2 is now also connecting to that iSCSI LUN 0 data store. So sorry, just had to double check that and make sure that that did in fact show 2 connections to it. That was the other piece to it, a common data store plus common networking. And so if we take a look under here, we should see that we have our VM network here. And the summary of that should show that our related objects for our hosts should show both our hosts are connected to our VM network as well. Okay.